Hello, I'm Jay Watson. Welcome to Your Fantastic Mind. First up this week, post-traumatic stress disorder affects millions of Americans, and even with treatment, up to half can relapse or don't fully recover. But now, new research is targeting the brain itself to try to quiet the brain's fear response.
3 young black teenagers at 16 years of age with all of this potential for the future has about 10 shotguns pulled on them in a vehicle. And if that doesn't give you post-traumatic stress syndrome, then I don't know what will.
For actor, writer, and comedian Dex Spencer, the trauma dates back to high school, a routine night leaving a football game that turned into a life-altering encounter with police.
I would have clients reach out with the same name and I would be triggered. It was pretty bad for a while.
For Casey Carlson, who works in sales for a restaurant company, a violent relationship left lasting psychological and physical impact. Different trauma, the same condition.
I was having flashbacks. I was having memories. I couldn't go to stores that I knew he would frequent. I couldn't go places without being triggered at some memory that had happened there.
For both, the past wasn't staying in the past. Do you have things like that, environments and places that bring it back in a flash?
It looked like a routine traffic stop, so anything that looks remotely close to that, yes.
And for many people with PTSD, that's where healing stops. PTSD isn't just psychological, it's biological.
The amygdala is a region that is involved in processing of anything threatening. So if you see anything potentially threatening in the environment, it makes fires. And it's much stronger in people with PTSD.
The brain's fear center, constantly signaling danger. And even with therapy or medication, up to half of patients don't fully recover or relapse over time.
What it means on a day-to-day basis is
for nearly 15 years, Dr. Sana Van Roy, a clinical neuroscientist at Emory, has been studying the brain circuits behind trauma, trying to understand why some people recover and others don't.
So they come in for 2 weeks every day, so it takes about an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Now she's testing a new approach called repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, RTMS. It uses targeted magnetic pulses placed on the outside of the head to gently change activity in specific areas of the brain. RTMS is already FDA approved to treat depression, OCD, migraines, and nicotine dependence.
We have good treatments for PTSD. They're effective for 50 to 70% of patients, trauma-focused therapies, psychotherapies. But then we know also that 30 to 50% does not recover from these treatments.
The idea: change the signal driving fear.
So TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, is a non-invasive neuromodulation therapy, which means you can modulate the brain using magnetic stimulation by placing a coil on the head.
Yes, ready?
But there's a limit. RTMS can only reach a few centimeters into the brain, not deep enough to directly target the amygdala. So they found a workaround.
We can use the stimulation on the outside of the brain, finding the area that is communicating with the amygdala, and choose that as our location for treatment. Hopefully that will actually help us, and we can downregulate the amygdala, dampen it or dial it down.
This connected region is in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
You doing okay?
For each person, the team identified the personalized area in this region that most strongly communicated with the amygdala.
We're talking about the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, but we define it really broadly. So it's basically this whole frontal area of the brain on the right side. And we purposefully defined it really broadly because we were interested in seeing if this location that we pick for each participant is different.
And it is. MRI scans precisely identified where to apply stimulation. Then they target that spot twice a day for 10 days, delivering 36,000 magnetic pulses.
I would just sit there and work for an hour, and they'd come check in on me, and it would just keep tapping over and over again. It was actually really relaxing.
The study was double-blind and randomized, meaning no one knew who was receiving real treatment. 50 participants, half active, half placebo. All of the participants were tested in a startle booth, where an unexpected puff of air measures how easily they're startled. After RTMS, follow-up MRIs showed the amygdala became less reactive to neutral and fearful faces.
We saw that the individuals who received the active TMS show like a lower response to the amygdala, to the fearful faces in the amygdala after TMS, whereas the other group doesn't show the difference.
The fear center quieted, and symptoms dropped with it. On average, PTSD scores fell nearly in half, from around 40 to about 20, below the threshold for clinical PTSD. In the placebo group, that improvement didn't last.
It wasn't at the forefront of my mind anymore. It wasn't the first thing I thought about. It wasn't, like I had to actually remember. I won't say it like made me forget, because nothing will ever make you forget, but it made it not as prominent. It made it not as, like it didn't impact my life anymore.
Today, Casey is engaged, building a new life.
My life's fantastic now. I'm in a healthy relationship, and I don't think I would have been able to talk about some of the things and heal parts of myself without this.
The trauma didn't disappear, but it no longer controlled their lives.
After these treatments, I feel like it opened the doorway and allowed the optimism to set in. And when the optimism set in, it was able to be maintained because I had recurrent treatments, and it worked. It definitely moved the needle.
Today, Dex's acting career is taking off with roles in film and television.
There's this gigantic stigma around mental health. My personal philosophy is, it is a stigma that we have to remove.
By calming the brain's fear circuitry, this approach may help people take their lives back.
It was a part of my past, but I was able to move on.